Good evening. Welcome to the board meeting for Grand Blanc Township for Tuesday, October 17th. If we could all rise for the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. Clerk Robertson, would you call the roll, please?
I would be happy to. Trustee Hugo.
Here.
Trustee Fike.
Here.
Trustee Raridan.
Here.
Trustee White.
Here.
Treasurer Kilmer.
Here.
Of course, I'm here, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
7 members present, a quorum.
Thank you. And now I'll entertain a motion for approval of the agenda. Motion by Ms. Hugo, supported by Dr. Reardon.
Motion by Hugo, supported by Raridan for the agenda. Trustee Raridan.
Yes.
Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
7-0, motion passes.
Thank you. And now we will open the floor for public comment. And we have a public comment card from Mr. K.C. Barron. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Casey Barron. I'm an attorney, and I'm running for judge for the 67th District Court, which is, this seat is actually here in Grand Blanc, but the district runs and includes Fenton, which is a seat that Judge McCabe occupies, but that one will be vacant in another 2 years. But in any case, I'm running this for the next November election, getting out early, of course, trying to build support early in the election. Obviously, we haven't finished our election this cycle, but again, getting out early. I wanted to run for judge for quite some time. Since law school, I've had people tell me that I probably should run for judge. I believe in a lifetime of service to our community and the nation. I'm a graduate of West Point. I went to Michigan State for law school. I'm an Army veteran, and I believe service is very important to the community. And I believe that I can contribute my talents and skills as an attorney, also my leadership skills that I gained through being an officer in the military, to being a judge in the community and helping people in the legal field. So I would ask for your support, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak. Again, my name is Casey Barron. I'm running for 67th District Court Judge. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Barron. Anybody else? A public comment? We have Mr. Yancho here this evening. Good evening, Mr. Yancho.
Good evening, Supervisor Bennett. My name is Mike Yancho, Sr. I live at 10640 Halsey Road. And I just want to commend this board for all the hard work that they do, but in particular for bringing this road maintenance policy to consideration. And I think it's a long time overdue that we took more responsibility, hands-on responsibility for maintaining our roads and upgrading our roads in our subdivisions and things that we don't really have jurisdiction over, but the road commission doesn't seem to have the funding to improve these roads, and so thank you for considering this new policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yancho. Anyone else have public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board, and I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the consent agenda. Somebody cares to make that motion? Okay, motion by Mr. Fike, supported by Mr. White.
Supported by White. Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Raridan.
Yes.
Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
7-0, motion passes.
Okay, thank you. And now under old business, item A, strategic plan item, improving parks and recreation facilities. We have Ms. Roberts here this evening.
Good evening. How is
evening.
everyone? I am representing Matt Kimmer tonight.
Okay.
was feeling a little under the weather. So I just wanted to let you know where we're at on our Parks and Recreation facilities. We met with the Parks and Recreation Department last week and discussed some different items in the South Pavilion area. Also, same day, we met with our new grant writer. And so we discussed some different ideas, and what we're going to be pursuing is a playground, revitalizing the playground that's already out there, as we've talked about before, rehabilitating the South Pavilion that's out there, putting in ADA parking and pathways, and hold your breath, pickleball courts. So we are seeking funding for a couple of these items, and we should find out, as you know, we've discussed this already, but we should find out in the next few months whether we'll be getting the funding for these items. And that would maybe be half of the cost of all of that. So with our millage funds that come in, we would pay for the other half. So we're hoping to have some pretty major improvements going on at Bicentennial Park in 2024, 2025.
Is that the congressional money that we met with the congressional?
Yes.
Congressman Kildee?
Part of the funding would come from that, and then part of the funding would come from the Recreation Passport Grant through the DNR, Michigan DNR.
Does that include splash pad or?
It does not. Splash pad is, unfortunately, we didn't get all of the funding that we requested from the congressional funding. The splash pad, just in and of itself, without running water and all of the things
Right.
we need to do, is between $700,000 and $800,000. All of this revitalization that we're talking about costs $800,000 in and of itself. So, and we might not be able to do it all if we don't get all the funding. So we're going to start there. Splash pads on the radar, some fencing, concrete pad poured for the bleachers on Field 6, and pathway to that is on the radar. There's several different things in the works.
We had the ribbon cutting for the fitness court this past week.
Yes.
Had a competition between the patrol and the administration. I'm not sure which one won.
There's a few
They're
gentlemen.
telling me the administration won, but I think it was pretty close. But a couple more minutes and might have been a tie, but it was a great ribbon cutting, and it was great to see the place open, and I'm sure when better weather comes, it'll get even more use. But
Absolutely.
any questions for Ms. Roberts regarding parks, recreation?
Thank you.
Or we're keeping our fingers crossed that we get lots of grants for our park.
Right.
So, okay, thanks. Okay, item B, budget discussion. That's Mr. Lemata.
This is as a placeholder, just to see if the board still has a concurrence moving forward. I know Supervisor Bennett is going to be unavailable on November 14th meeting, so just off our schedule, we thought that it would be the November 28th meeting to hold the public hearing and truth and taxation hearings, and then do the budget approval at that time on your November 28th meeting. If there's anything between that meeting, or if that date isn't working for you, let us know. And then if there's any additional information that you guys need, or any adjustments you need to make into that budget between then and now, or you need more information, you need a department head to appear, you just need to let me know, and we'll get you the information that you're looking for. But right now, we're on track and expecting that we can do our postings for the public hearings, truth and taxation hearing, and budget approval on your meeting of November 28th.
All right.
The ARPA report, you want to discuss that, Dennis?
And if you look on it, most of those have been completed, other than just getting the wrap up on Fire Station number 2 on those renovations, and Everything else is going to go to the fire station number 1. We want to have those dedicated by the end of this year. And that is almost $1.4 million is still remaining in that budget that would go directly to offset the cost of the fire station number 1. And you saw those costs at your last meeting when we had the guys from Plant Moran here.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Lemata? Mr. Fike?
Maybe you already told me, but I forgot. Regarding that fire station, there's still some things that need to be added. Is that part of all the ARPA funding, or is that going to be an additional request?
Fire station number 2,
Yes.
the one that we just did the ribbon cutting on, yeah, they're still doing furniture things or whatever, but that was included in the anticipated cost when Chief Burdette came to you guys and asked to have it, and I don't remember anymore, 1.4 or something.
Yeah, we're on 1.4. We asked for $45,000 additional dollars for furnishings and $33,000 for the rainwater removal system.
So on the up-to-date report, we say that there is remaining funds to be paid out of $396,472 to complete that project.
That's on station number 2.
Station number 2.
The money you're talking to about ARPA is for station number 1, right?
The $1.3 million, just under 1.4 is the entire balance of our ARPA funds to go towards Station 1.
Right.
What about the workout room?
Station 2?
Yeah,
Yeah, there's
the
still,
equipment.
Yes, I'm sorry, we still have the bedrooms that still have to be furnished, the fitness room equipment.
Yeah.
We have the generator still to purchase outside. We still have already purchased it, but we're waiting for the parts for the security system out there.
So that's all included in?
Yes.
Yeah,
yep.
got it. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else for Mr. Lemata? Yeah, the fire station number 2 looked fabulous for the ribbon cutting.
The picture out front with all the firefighters.
Signage out by the road looks very nice.
Beautiful.
I know our DPW's looking at how to remove some more brush out there, I guess, right? But the sign looks great. The building looks really nice and a lot more healthy living situation for any any firefighters that are, and police that happen to visit. But separation of the equipment and their living quarters, which I'm sure eventually it will be staffed 24/7 down the road as the rest of that area gets built out. Okay, under new business, the board will consider Resolution 23-33 establishing early voting site. So who is speaking this evening on that?
Well, I'm here and my deputy clerk is here. The resolution is fairly self-explanatory. We had an elections commission meeting just before the board meeting this evening, and the placement of this issue before the board was unanimously approved. As you know, or should know, certainly know, I think I've mentioned it before, Grand Blanc Township was selected. We're very appreciative to the Bureau of Elections that they chose us for a pilot program for early voting, for the 9 days of early voting. And so this resolution is in furtherance of early voting and the establishment thereof of the early voting process. So I am asking for the board's support for the resolution, and if there are any questions, I'll answer them, or Lynn's here as well. But I'll make that motion since it's my resolution and my.
You thinking that we want to support it, Jude?
Support it. Okay. Well, I appreciate that, Mr. 23-33. Motion by
Have any comments? Or
Raridan. Do I see a second from, or, excuse me,
Raridan already did.
Dr. Raridan supported. I made the motion to adopt. Motion by Robertson, supported by Raridan. Trustee Hugo. Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Thank you. Trustee Raridan.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Myself, yes, of course. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
7-0, motion passes.
Thank you. Item B, the board will consider Resolution 23-24 to recommend approval to Tim and Stone LLC for a retail on-premise liquor license from the township's quota. So we discussed this at the last meeting. Our legal counsel, Attorney Laddie, I'm not sure if it was the previous meeting, but maybe 2 meetings ago, we talked about it. But we talked about having an agreement that we were going to ask them to sign that would basically promise that liquor license would stay in the community and wouldn't leave here upon their dissolution of potentially in the future. And I'm not sure if we were able to get them to sign that.
Yep, they've signed the agreement.
Okay. All right, so it's signed, and I guess that was the one stipulation this board wanted to see. Other than that, I think we were happy with what they were doing with it, so this is kind of the formal process for moving it forward at this point. Anybody have any questions or concerns?
Yeah, who are Tim and Stone?
Well, we talked about it at previous meetings. They're opening they have one restaurant here currently, and they're preparing to open I'm hearing that it's an upscale Korean barbecue, and it will be where the former CC's Pizza was located in the strip mall near Walmart or across the parking lot from Walmart. I think there's a couple of retail establishments there, game place, hair salon type place, massage, whatever, in that strip mall there. But it's where CC's Pizza was. But we've discussed it a few times now. Any thoughts, any concerns? Otherwise, you make the motion, Ms. Hugo? Okay, Ms. Hugo makes the motion. Mr. White supports.
Motion by Hugo, supported by White. Trustee Raritan.
Yes.
Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
7-0, motion passes.
Just a comment with regard to that liquor license and the individuals opening that business. You know, one of the more frequent comments I'm sure all of you get, as well as myself, is that, hey, we need more restaurants. Well, this is a restaurant coming to the area, and it's somebody who's putting up their own money here locally. It's always real easy to tell everybody else what to do with their money, but these folks are putting up their own money. And, you know, one of the things I tell people, too, if you want more restaurants in our area, support the ones that are here now. What attracts more restaurants is when the ones that we have are so successful that other restaurant owners want to be nearby. And it's not just on Friday and Saturday nights. They got to pay their bills 7 days a week, just like all of us. Item C, the board will consider a motion to approve employment agreements for the DPS director and assistant finance director. Mr. Limita?
So at your seats this evening, you have copies, hard copies of both of the agreements. It's pretty much boilerplate, both for the director and the assistant director. These are the same agreements that we've used for all other non-represented, independently contracted employees. It spells out terms of the employment. In the case of the director, we usually do those for 3 years. Anything under a director is usually evergreen. It doesn't have an end date. They continue in perpetuity until the board makes a decision not to move that position forward any longer. Has their salary in there. The insurances and other benefits are spelled out. The paid time off is spelled out. And then just the terms of employment. Again, it's the same exact language that you've seen in any other agreements that you've approved. Hasn't changed. And looking to have you make a motion to have us move forward and authorize the supervisor and the clerk to execute the agreements with these candidates. This is the end of a search. Obviously, the Director of Public Services is to replace Jeff Sears after he left us a few months ago. I can tell you that Al Cooley is the candidate that we move forward. We held a couple panel interviews with Mr. Cooley. He's currently the Director of Public Works for the City of Pontiac. He's got extensive experience going back a number of years working with Oakland County's water resource. for them for like 15 years. He's been the past 6 years with the city of Pontiac. And one thing that really impressed me with Mr. Cooley was that because the city of Pontiac went into bankruptcy and receivership with emergency managers, they turned over their DPW department to the county to run, gave all their equipment away. And he said they even went in and took dumpsters, threw away furniture, files, everything. And then when he went back, he came back as like a superintendent, became the deputy director, and then became the director. He's basically rebuilt that department from scratch with 5 employees. I think he said they were up to 36 employees now and authorized to go up to 56. But literally, they had to build the DPW department for the city of Pontiac. And of course, they still, it's still really owned by Oakland County because they have to pay back the $40 million or whatever it was that they got for selling them, all of their assets. So I think you'll find he's kind of a no-nonsense guy, very impressed in the interviews. Said 2 different panel interviews, and it was a really good competition. Came down to a couple of really excellent candidates, and Mr. Cooley won in the end, and 100% unanimous at that second panel interview. The other position before you is the assistant finance director. I can tell you that, like everywhere, finding help is really, really hard right now in order to get any hiring done. We feel incredibly lucky with this candidate for the assistant finance director. As you recall, we brought somebody into that position just a couple of months ago, and they lasted 2 weeks and then took a job on the west side of the state. We're all competing in the same pool. It's been tough. It's really employees' market right now, not the employer's market. But Chantel has incredible background. She comes to us without so much the government side, but has enough of the accounting. And quite frankly, for what this position does, we've got an amazing finance director in Kathy Sostak, who handles our government fund accounting, which does a lot of the specific reports that governments are required to provide. This position is going to be more in that day-to-day oversight of truly the actual accounting. So she'll learn more about the governmental accounting as we move on. But again, tough candidate pool. We again came down to 2 incredible candidates, and Chantel was again a unanimous recommendation to move forward from the panel.
Any questions, Mr. Molina, on the 2 new individuals?
Is the motion in order, Mr. Supervisor?
It is.
Then I will make that motion.
Okay. Is there support? Dr. Reardon supports.
Raritan supports. Very good. Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Trustee Raritan.
Yes.
Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
7-0, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, just will add, they both have already cleared the background checks, so they are cleared and ready to go.
When do you anticipate, Mr. Lima, them?
I believe Mr. Cooley's first day on the job will be October 30th, and Chantel's is November 4th, maybe, if I'm
Okay.
getting that correctly.
Very good. Okay, moving on, item D, the board will consider a motion to approve zoning case number 674K regarding DDA signage. And we have Mr. Smith, our zoning and planning administrator. How you doing? And code enforcement.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening.
So at the October 12th meeting, the Planning Commission held a public hearing for the zoning amendment to amend Section 5.19 and to add 5.19.3.A.8 for monument signs for multi-tenant properties within the DDA district, for commercial and industrial subdivisions within that DDA district to have a maximum signage of 250 square feet and a maximum height of 10 feet. So this is to give leeway to the ever-popular DDA district that we're going to be having. We know that this is going to be a area of interest and significance that is going to be very soon. We know probably Tech Village will be starting construction hopefully soon, so we're hoping that we're trying to get ahead of this. Part of the reason for this also is so that if there are multi-tenant businesses or parcels or subdivisions, that the back parcels or the back businesses also have road frontage, and they'll be able to have some signage and branding at the road. That way that they're not just lost in the back of a subdivision,
Also,
commercial subdivision.
reduces the number of signs too, actually. I mean, in terms of not having to have multiple monument signs to advertise everybody that's in that,
Yes,
place. It makes kind of a more uniform
correct.
look to it.
Yep, and this is just for multi-tenant parcels or subdivisions only. Not every parcel in the DDA district will qualify for this.
I've been down Baldwin Road lately, and you've seen Enterprise Park. They actually stuck our township logo on their sign, which looks fabulous.
Yep, looks great.
I like that. Any questions, concerns? Everybody good with it? Making the motion, Hugo? Yes. Supported by Mr. Fike.
Motion by Hugo, supported by Fike. Item 7.
Just a comment before we move on, and I appreciate the planning commission. We have a couple of our planning commission members here this evening, Mr. Yancho, Mr. Anderson, and we appreciate them for looking this over.
Yep,
And we got a fabulous planning commission. I mean, I drive through Grand Blanc Township and look at the new developments, and really looking spectacular. And I know that a lot of that comes from requirements that our planning commission puts out there.
yes. And to add to that too, they passed this, they recommended the township board with a 6-0 vote.
Very good. All
Okay.
right.
Shall I proceed with the record
Sure,
roll
go
call?
right ahead.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Raridan.
Yes.
Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Supervisor Bennett.
Yes,
7-0, motion passes.
thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks again, Mr. Anderson, Mr. Yancho. Item E, that the board will consider a motion to approve the purchase of one 2024 Chevrolet Silverado 2500 HD extended cab pickup not to exceed $47,000 and one 2024 Chevrolet Silverado 2500 HD regular cab pickup with Western plow package not to exceed $55,000 from Berger Chevrolet and Knapheide Equipment, and authorize the township superintendent to execute all related purchase POs and contracts and documents. We have Mr. Boggs, our interim DPS director, with us this evening.
Good evening, everyone. We have a truck budgeted for next year with the price increases that we're already seeing from the truck you previously approved back, I believe, on August 8th. They're already going up, and they're going to go up next year. Plus, the Parks and Rec Department has something budgeted for pickup trucks, so we figured we would buy two of them right now. Would have to do a budget amendment, and then later on, once the trucks come in, we would sell one of our trucks that we have now in our fleet to Parks and Rec, because they need a plow package for their park operations and senior center operations.
So we have a capital equipment schedule, right? I mean.
Yes.
We're just following our.
Yes, we're following the capital, so it's in the capital plan for next year. We're just purchasing a little early just to save some
Right.
costs.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to save some money on, plus, I don't know, it'll probably take a while to get it, won't it?
Yeah, they're ordering right now, so we probably receive, well, with the strike, we might see it the first quarter next year.
Right.
So we would take delivery, most likely. It could come, depending on how the strike, it could come at the end of the year, but most likely it'd be first quarter next year.
But we'll get the price that we're.
Exactly.
Now, regardless of when
Exactly.
it's delivered. Can we request a hydrogen fuel cell?
You have to talk to Miss Barra about that. I don't know.
Yes. Mr. Fike?
Are these trucks made in Flint?
believe so. The HDs are made on Van Slyke. I believe there's final assemblies there at the truck plant. Last time I knew.
Purchase, this government program that we purchased it through, just for the public's benefit, and many of our board don't recall, this is a statewide purchasing program that,
Oakland County.
you know, I've spoken with dealers locally, and they said, we can't touch it, you got to go through them.
It's amazing how much it's gone up and just this, from this year to next year. I mean, usually it was like, it was crazy how good these trucks were coming.
Exactly. Yep. Okay. Somebody care to make the motion through these, or any questions? Okay. Mr. Fike makes the
Fikes
motion.
makes the motion. And
Dr. Reardon.
Dr. Reardon provides the second. Very good. Item 7E. Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Trustee Reardon.
Yes.
Trustee White. Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
7-0, motion passes.
Thank you. Item F, the board will consider a motion to declare one 2009 Chevrolet Silverado 2500 HD and one 2009 Chevrolet Silverado 2500 HD, and also one 2011 Chevrolet Silverado 2500 HD and their snowplow package as surplus equipment, and authorize the township superintendent to sell these vehicles via public auction and execute all related contracts and documents. Mr. Boggs?
This follows the same capital plan, so these trucks have outlived their life, and we have no use for them in the fleet anymore. So one was our mechanics, lead senior mechanics truck. Another one was the one we replaced that you guys authorized back in August. And this third one is due for out of service. It's been lingering around since 2009.
Okay. And we auction them off, making the motion, Mr. White? Supported by,
Motion by White,
yep, supported by Ms. Hugo.
supported by Hugo. Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Trustee Raridan.
Yes.
Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
7-0, motion passes.
Thank you.
Could I say something real quick?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Boggs.
This is my last board meeting as interim director, and I would like to say thank you. Thank you for the privilege and the opportunity and the opportunity to grow my career. So I enjoyed every bit of it, and I'm forever grateful. So thank you all.
We appreciate your work as interim director, and I'm sure that you'll be of great assistance to, I know the person comes with experience, but I know we have some unique, things here, and we appreciate all the experience you have, Mr. Boggs. Item G, the board will consider a motion to approve the policy on road maintenance funding. Mr. Limita?
So we've talked about this, and there is a portion I will highlight in a moment, but we're trying to update it so that we can be as clear as we possibly can about why we have the policy and what the policy does. So that from the folks out, residents who are trying to get something done, understand that we're here to act as a financing wing. We don't take on the project, we don't do guarantees, we don't run the projects. We work with the road commission who does all of the engineering, the design, they go out for the bids. We strictly are the financing wing of these special assessments. So we tried to get the policy to be clear in that direction, to really talk about what it is we do, and then put in the percentages that are important. And it walks right through step by step what that process is. Also included were a section that in here, I have Township Board initiated SADS as Section 2. The reason that's in there is a few meetings back, we had a group of residents come from a subdivision who expressed their frustration with not being able to reach that magic 51% in order to move forward, and they asked the board to consider it. I included that in here in this draft for your consideration, not necessarily a recommendation, but what the process would be if you were to take on that as a board, that you're going to start to initiate special assessment districts and what those parameters could be. I have in here that if the Paiser rating completed by the road commission falls below a level 2, and the resident-initiated special assessment petition has failed within the past 24 months, that the board would consider it. This is a departure from anything that Grand Blanc Township Board of Trustees has ever done, so I wouldn't enter into it lightly. We've always gone the process that we're willing to be that financing arm if the residents initiate the petition drive, they receive support from more than 51% of the lineal footage of the property owners there, and then we move it forward. If you were to consider adding that section 2 to your road funding policy, know that you're taking on a role where, yes, there's still a way that they can defeat it. They can go get, I think it's 20% as a threshold of people to say, stop doing this. But it does mean that this board or future boards will be taking a look at these and saying, your street has become a safety hazard and we feel we must take an action, so we're going to move it forward and we're going to force the residents, or at least 20% or more of them, to step up and stop this project from moving forward. I don't know how well it will be received. It will clearly be received well by some of the residents that you saw here a couple of months ago who asked you for this very thing. I included it in your policy, again, not as a recommendation necessarily, but as a discussion point on, does that make sense? Is the board willing to move forward? I think that the phase 1 in here that we have just really spells out our current policy. There's no changes in there, so this would be an easy one. It's just a cleaned up version of what exactly we're doing right now, and just being more clear about the steps, process, and timelines required. The second phase is, again, I listed as optional, but I do think, I don't know that you guys need to make that motion to authorize us to move forward with this tonight. It might require more discussion, but I at least wanted to highlight what those steps would be if the board had the stomach for it and said, yes, this is a good thing, we want to move it forward, and we're going to be responsive to make sure that we keep the streets at least above a Paiser rating. And again, I put the caveat in there that it's also failed on a petition drive, and it's a Paiser rating of 2.
So, Mr. Limita, am I wrong in assuming that we already have the ability to do that by law, right? This just kind of codifies it in our ordinance that that we're able to create a, let's say that there's a street that we need to have it paved and everybody's in agreement, and we just put the special assessment, district forward. Would this limit us from doing that, to require it to have a Paiser rating of, below 2 and have failed to have, or could we still do it, do you believe?
You're right in that you've always had the authority, and still do to this day, of doing it, but there's been no policy on it.
Right.
Being a policy-driven organization, all we're trying to do is cement policy. It's a good point. Would it limit you? Well, you'd have to agree to operate outside of your written or adopted policy. If we adopt it as, these are the parameters, this is the only way we're going to move it forward. So again, that's why it's great for discussion is, does it limit you? Well, it does, in the fact that you could always change policy, update policy, or make a motion to agree to deviate from policy for this particular project.
Right. Dr. Reardon?
So since we have that authority, maybe it would be good just to spell it out without making the recommendation, just put it right in the policy that be it known that the township board has the authority if they so choose. I mean, that would give people a reminder that we could do it, but without putting it officially, making it a policy.
And I think one of the things that we've always said to answer questions that we receive as staff from residents, we have always said it is the board's policy to initiate or to do special assessment districts only for resident-initiated special assessments, right? Because that's the only thing we had a policy on. We didn't have a policy before. So I think your point's valid if you want to include it in policy saying that the board has the authority to do so. But then, you know, I mean, you're opening it up to say your policy recognizes that you have that authority, then you need to spell out the parameters because you're going to have, it could just be one guy who calls and says, I read your policy, you have it. Why won't you do it for me?
Mr. Fike?
Well, we live in a democracy. And to me, if more than 50% of the residents say no, and for us to go in there and say, you know what, we know better, we're going to give you the road anyway, that's not right. And so I'd be against it.
But
I don't think we should be doing that, even if the road is crumbling to bits. You know, hey, they voted no.
But there's
The majority rules.
There's another circumstance, though, too, where the petition could fail. It's not only when they don't get 50% saying yes, you know, it could be that they just don't even get enough signatures to do it. You know, in the case of the residents that came to our meeting here a few months ago, it wasn't that it failed because 51% said no. It was that the subdivision was so huge that they were, you know, and they felt as though and they brought this up, not me, but, you know, their age worked against them in terms of going to that many doors. I forget how many residents were in that neighborhood, but it's 250 homes or more, I believe. And they just didn't think they would be able to get around it. And you figure, you know, most of these homes probably have 2 people on the deed. They just didn't think they'd be able to get around to all those houses, and that's why they were asking us. So I know what you're saying, Mr. Fike, but I'm saying there's some other circumstances, and I'm not saying that we should do it right now. I'm just pointing out that one of the situations that we should keep in mind is it's when people can't get around the entire neighborhood. We did have, you know, some that have tried and just couldn't get enough people motivated to go out and get signatures. It's a smaller neighborhood, it'd be a little bit easier, but even Ms. Hugo will tell you in a smaller neighborhood, even it's a feat that takes, you know, months to accomplish. You know, and when you have 250 homes or more, it may take you a year or more to get around to that many. Mr. Kilmer?
How would this possibly affect us? Okay, so we do one of these projects and
What project? A street project?
yes, in lieu of, when we don't have the 51% or whatever.
Oh, when we initiated a special
Yeah.
assessment, the board's initiated special assessment?
Once we do that,
Right.
do we have any obligation to do it for anybody who
Let's-
doesn't have,
Well, that's, I think, what Mr. Limita's point was, is that by having a policy, it sets, even though we have the ability to do it, it might be good to have some things in there that state that our policy is that we only do it for people that meet this criteria. And I think that was what Mr. Limita was trying to explain. You know, that's the reason for the policy, because we could get one person calling in his example that says, hey, I want my streets paved and I want you guys to initiate the special assessment. So yeah, you're right. We could end up with everybody saying, you know what, forget the signatures, just put it on the township board's back to do this. And that, you know, that might be the downside of having something like this, is that everybody depends on the township board to take it on the chin for initiating the special assessment. Clerk Robertson?
Yeah, as is always the case with Superintendent Limita, he always does a thorough good job in presenting us with all the information that we need. And I appreciate his inclusion of this language for discussion. But as I've said before, I agree with Trustee Fike here. 51% can't be argued with. Okay, I mean, everybody understands that our system works with, when people, 50% plus one, it's a defensible position. We may have the authority under state statute, but I don't like the idea of imposing a special assessment district. And I know, I don't dismiss the hardships of those who have difficulty gathering signatures, but frankly, when you're raising taxes or applying special assessments, it's supposed to be hard, okay? It's supposed to be a challenge. It's the greater burden is on those that are trying to impose that tax on the citizenry through their signatures and through 50% plus one. So with regard to the issue before us, is it your intention that we vote to approve the policy this evening, Mr. Supervisor?
I'm okay with discussing it more. I mean, the other thing is that I wanted to form a committee, and we've got a number of people that have volunteered to serve on it from the public, from a variety of neighborhoods around the township. Just at the point where we said we were going to form that, our DPW director announced his departure. So been waiting till we get somebody new on board, so that they're in it right from the start. I know Mr. Boggs would be capable of doing it as well, but I want us to have all hands on deck and have them as part of the committee. But I would think that, this is something the committee can bat around at least some of the portions of it and get some input. But I agree, I don't think any of us want to impose, our will on people, but there may be circumstances, I don't know how to word it yet, but there may be circumstances where we want to assist a neighborhood with being able to, but there would have to be some kind of indication that there's overwhelming support.
Well, then
for it.
if there's, excuse me for the back and forth, Mr. Supervisor, but if the law already provides for it, but I don't know that we need to articulate it in a policy, and two, if there's overwhelming support, they'll have no difficulty getting 51%.
If they want to physically get the signatures, or can. We had a situation on a smaller smaller street a couple of years ago where we were having trouble getting the signatures just because people were out of state, and it was a lot of it was vacant property, and the owners didn't live anywhere around here. So trying to reach the owners, while the people that were here definitely wanted it, trying to reach the property owners that weren't here was a problem. It would have been much easier just to say, hey, you know what, we're just going to establish a special assessment district and do it. And time was of the essence because the road commission had some money, but we were able to do it, get that road paved. But I'd like to have everybody look at it a little bit more. Mr. Lehman, any thoughts on this as well, or on the discussion?
I think the biggest challenge, if you are going to do board-initiated special assessment districts, then I think that you should clearly define what would be the impetus for moving that forward, right? Let's put it in a procedure that's easy to follow, because then whether you use my recommendations in here that it's PASER rating and that they failed to be able to get one in the last 24 months, or it's some other parameters that are required to move it forward, I think that would be important in policy if you chose to go that way. I just know that, I agree as a taxpayer, when I put that hat on versus an administrator, and say, if I lived in a subdivision where you've come around twice or three times with these petitions and I've said no every time, that I'm just not willing to have my taxes go up in order to pay for the street, and then the board says, well, we're going to do it anyway, would I pay particular attention during the next election cycle? I assure you I would. So, there is that. You guys put yourself out there. There's a risk, but that's the risk you take as a politician. Sometimes you make decisions and you know that not everybody's going to appreciate your decision, but you're making it for the right reasons. So there is a political risk associated with that, and I think it's okay to say that, like it should be a consideration for you guys. It's also, as a resident who says, man, you heard from us. We told you, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. and then you jammed it, you forced it down our throats. Yes, there's a safety relief valve. Yes, I can go get more than 20% of the people to say no. But now you're forcing me to go out there and knock on doors to say, can you believe what this board's trying to throw down on us? So there's some negativity that goes along with the policy. On the other hand, take a look at subdivisions that roads are clearly crumbling. When I was here, first moved here and was looking for a house, my sister as a realtor would bring me into subdivisions. I'd get in the driveway and I would say, let's go, I don't need to look at the house because the roads are so bad, I don't want to live here. And I mean, that's just me, but I think a lot of people do that. They see the road has so deteriorated, I don't want anything to do with that neighborhood because it's like the broken windows syndrome, right? I'm afraid that then it's going to be broken windows and couches in front yards and cars up on blocks.
Right.
So you're trying to keep your community up to a certain standard. So there's, on the one hand, I feel like municipal council suddenly. Well, on the one hand, and on the other hand, but at the same time, you guys are going to be the ones who make the decision to move it forward. All I would say is if you choose to include that in your policy, keep the parameters in there that this is what will trigger it. Because I think it's kind of that valve where you guys now can say, we don't want to do it. We'd much rather it goes this way. However, when it becomes a health and safety issue, then we take an action and we're doing it because to provide for the health and safety of our residents.
I've got a question actually for Mr. Smith. So with regard, come on up, Jeremy. So one of the things that insurance companies will take a look at is when they're in a parking lot of a business is the parking lot and what horrible shape it is. And most of the time, the insurance company will make the business patch it and pave it because it becomes a hazard. Is it in our code that businesses have to have their parking lots in a certain condition, or could I have huge holes and ruts and things like that in my parking lot?
It's addressed in the property maintenance code, and every site plan, they have to give a grading plan for parking spaces and things of that sort, and it has to be kept within certain standards and conditions so that it's maintained and there's no safety hazards in it as well. So we have
Right.
a couple different arms that we could go after with.
So we require our businesses to have parking lot, thank you, Mr. Smith. We require our businesses to keep their parking lots maintained, what have you, and it does become a hazard in our neighborhoods. I know we don't own the streets, and we don't have jurisdiction over them, but that's the road commission. And it does lead to, decaying neighborhoods when you have subdivision streets that are in, total disarray. Yes.
What if we put a footnote in there saying that in the event that the Paisley rating drops below a 2 and it becomes a health and safety hazard, the township reserves the right to do X? I mean, wouldn't that accomplish the same thing without
Mandating that we're going to force it on them.
Right.
Yeah.
That could be something we can look at.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole debate about whether may or shall, right? I mean, it's so reserves the right, may consider moving forward if it rises to the level of a health and safety hazard as determined by,
Right.
I
mean, you hear some people say, hey, I don't care if they, go back to gravel, but in all honesty, from my discussions with the road commission, it would cost as much to return them to gravel as what it would to pave them in a lot of cases.
And I would imagine that, like some of the fire trucks and some of these roads, if they hit some of these potholes, you could do significant damage. I mean, and for the safety of everybody on the street, not.
Right.
Not just
Well,
the fire trucks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, our plows, there's some streets that I think are probably becoming questionable as to whether or not we want to take our plows down there just because when you hit some of the dips and potholes that exist on some of the streets, it could do significant damage to the plow truck. So we may have to stop plowing some of those streets eventually too, which probably isn't going to make people happy either, but I think we want to discuss a little bit more, and maybe we'll form a committee to look at it. Well, we're going to have our Streets and Roads Committee that we'll form after we get our new, Mr. Cooley is on board here.
I mean, I can, depending on what the board's pleasure is, I can move it to old business and just, we can bring it back around,
let's
each
do that.
meeting and have further discussion on it until we reach that comfort level.
Let's do that, Mr. Lehman. Okay.
Item H, 7H.
The board will consider a motion to approve a proposed construction agreement between the Township and Genesee County Road Commission to provide road construction services in the Wishing Well subdivision. Mr. Lehman?
So this is the construction agreement. You guys moved forward to create the actual special assessment district tax roll at your last meeting. This is the construction agreement with the road commission that authorizes us to go into the agreement with them to move it forward with this estimate. Obviously, what this does then is triggers the road commission to go into design, build, and go out for bids and get all that moving. So they will entertain this on their meeting of November 7th, I think maybe it is, or
17th.
17th, yeah. So if the board does, we've gone through all the other processes, this is a matter of authorizing the, again, supervisor and clerk to execute the agreement. We'll forward it on to the road commission, and it will appear before them on their meeting of November 17th for approval.
Okay, somebody care to make that motion? Mr. White,
Mr. White makes the motion.
supported by Mr. Fike.
Fike. Supported by Fike. Trustee Raritan.
Yes.
Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
7-0, motion passes.
Thank you. Under future agenda items, coming up on our next agenda will be our branding and signage, some discussion on where we're at with that. Item B, the next board meeting, we want to have that on November 1st. It's a Wednesday, just a reminder. We already have that on the schedule as Wednesday, so we don't have to change the meeting date, but I just want to make sure everybody's aware that our next meeting will be on a Wednesday because Halloween's on that Tuesday. We're also going to need to move the location of the meeting to the community room at the police station due to the 9-day early voting that will be taking place in this room. So remember, it'll be over at the police station in the community room, and it's going to be on Wednesday. With that, any board reports? Anybody want to report on anything? Yes.
Just one thing, the number of absentee ballots that we have now is over 5,000. Just, I think the last mention I mentioned, it was like 3,600. We're at 5,000 absentee ballots for a little over 5,000.
How does that compare to previous off-election years?
I should have known you'd ask that question. Honestly, I'm not sure, but I think it's a considerable amount for an off-year election. I could get you those figures. if
That's
you want.
okay. But I'm sure it's considerably higher than what it normally is, or had been in previous years. Okay, anything else? Couple of, yeah,
I'm sorry.
that's right.
You're on the board reports, right?
Yep.
The library is, they're doing some different things, but they have about $7,000 worth of stuff that they want, that they want to do. Now, I think it's worthwhile noting that they don't want any money. They have money in their budgeting thing.
Good.
But I think it's worth noting that they're willing to
Use their money.
use their money.
Good. We're also looking for someone to serve on the McFarland Library Board.
Yes.
Miss Becky Anderson. I don't know, Larry, how long has your mom served on that board? Quite a while. What's that? 6 years. Was that all? Okay. Anyway, she is stepping down at the end of her term, the end of this month, and so we are looking for an individual
was
to
December.
serve. What's that?
I thought it was December. Maybe,
I thought it was at the end of this month, she told me, but we might have somebody, but if you know of anybody who's interested, please forward their name to us. With that, just a couple of points before we get to Mr. Limata. Spoke with Dr. Brown, our county commissioner, and our millage evidently has to be approved, or millage question has to be approved by the county board. That's happening this week, that they'll be looking at that. With regard to the street lights on Dort Highway, and we're talking about lighting, not necessarily stop lights. Several of us met with the Consumers Energy, Mr. Boggs, Ms. Roberts, myself, met and discussed the street light situation. They have engineered a plan. We are moving forward with it. And you'll probably start to see the lights going up. We're thinking probably end of the year, beginning of January, right? January, first quarter of next year, those lights will be put up, which will really brighten it. I think it's, 37 lights or 39 lights? Something like that between Hill Road and Grand Blanc Road, so.
It's dark.
There'll be considerably more lighting.
Hallelujah.
The entrance into National Estates off of Dort will be much brighter. Entrance into Walmart or that Heritage Park will be much brighter, be much safer. The lights between, the street lighting between Hill Road and Maple Road, we're asking for an engineering to be done on that. It should be completed in the next few weeks. We'll be looking at that, and that probably will happen about the same time frame. There's a lot that goes into it in that where the wires are existing, trying to space out the lights so they're not, inconsistent. We're trying to come up with a consistent look, so it's every so many feet. We're looking at what color poles we want, at least between here and Saginaw Street, on Saginaw Street between Maple and Hill. But we are planning to have that done also in the first quarter of this next year too, so that should make a huge difference. We hosted several other townships supervisors here last week, and showed them around our township. And I think I'll be serving on the Mass Transit Authority Board, I believe, as well, here in the next few weeks. So with that, Mr. Limata, anything to report on?
No, I just got back from vacation, so I have to be retrained and start from scratch. I'm sorry.
You look well rested.
Thank you.
So actually I was out by the proposed tech village earlier today, and it looks like they're doing maybe some soil borings out there, and at least that's what it appeared. Maybe I could be wrong, but looked like there's some equipment out there anyways out in the property, so that's exciting to see that moving along.
Yeah, it is moving forward. That is good to see. There is some work being done on the master plan, which is great because we want to see exactly what they're going to propose on the project to come before us. And I know there's a tremendous amount of interest. Obviously, all you have to do is look at Grand Blanc Enterprise Park and how quickly that property sold out, quite frankly. I think Tech Village will be very much the same once they get it master planned and get the road and get the water and sewer in. I would expect that the same thing that is probably an infill, especially on the light industrial side within a couple of years, that you'll see all that property sold off and moved forward.
I have a question about that. So we did a master plan, or we did a plan, right?
For the tech village?
Did a conceptual plan.
And then so the developers do a whole other plan.
So the way it worked is when we first proposed it, we did a market assessment study, and we took the two individual property owners at the time, and we did a market assessment study. We hired a company who looked at all the market and said, here is what would be viable in that property that would be most well received, and it ended up being a mixed-use development combination of residential, light industrial, retail, other commercial space. With that, we built zoning around it, and again, with the assistance of the property owners, so that everything is ready to go, basically made it shovel-ready. Now, when it's purchased by the new owners and that group of developers takes a look at it, they could go with our conceptual plan, they could go with a different plan and totally rezone the property. and go in another complete direction. So we're waiting to see what they actually bring their master plan to us, saying this is the project that we're going to build. The township and the DDA have long held that if you're building Tech Village with the mixed use and the Tech Village Center, as well as a tech park, that we're willing to put the water and sewer in as economic incentive, paid for, obviously repaid with the DDA funds, the capture, so that we can help develop that. And it's in something that is needed in the overall area and something that would be a huge tax boost to us. But again, we can't control that process. The owner of the property controls it. If they come in and have a completely different plan, it would be up to this board as well as the DDA, whether they have any interest whatsoever in providing any financial incentives if they're not going to build the conceptual plan.
And we would put the water and sewer in if they put the road in. So it isn't, they need to put the road in for us to put the water and sewer in.
Yeah, there's always been some checks and balances in it that if you put the road in, we'll put the water and sewer in. And again, I mean, when we first initially proposed that, we were talking about $3.5 million water and sewer project. That's $5.5 million water and sewer project now. If it goes another 5 years, it'll be an $8 million water. I mean, it's just the nature of the thing.
Same with the road too, right? I mean, it's now like probably a $10 million road.
Yes, from a $7 million to a $10 million investment now.
Their plan comes first, and then we approve all the,
Yep, they have to.
Yeah.
They have to bring a master plan to us to show us what they're doing, and then they'll start to site plan it and say, this is what we're building, this is where the road is, this is where this property is being marketed as light industrial, this is where the Tech Village Center, here's the downtown area, that kind of thing. So they'll actually bring it with the parcels carved out, showing us what they intend to do before we would agree to move forward. Okay.
So, and there's several things they have to look at too. So for example, they might be out there doing soil borings to see where the best places are to build or the best place for the road, where there's delineated wetlands that they have to stay away from. There might be setbacks from existing, buildings or, neighborhoods or whatever that are out there, apartments that they have to stay away from. So they've got to figure out how they're going to route the road through. They don't want to route the road through in a manner that screws up the ability to build either. So they have a lot to figure out with their plan. But our conceptual plan, I think what they said was they liked it, right? And
Yeah.
so, they're going to try and keep with that idea, whether or not specifically, going to look identical to that mock-up that we have. I'm sure it'll change, but the idea is to keep the spirit of it and, what we were aiming towards the same. But they have quite a few businesses that are interested in coming there from what I've heard. So I'm excited about it. And, what's amazing is that I think last year, the whole year, we had 25 new housing starts, I believe. Already this year, I think we're at 35 year to date. So the number of houses that are being built is amazing. And then when you look at the other facilities, like on Grand Blanc Road, all the condos there being constructed, we have quite a bit of growth going on in our township. So that's, and then with the Enterprise Park, with probably 800 new jobs coming to that area, we're going to have quite a few more people visiting Grand Blanc, whether it's to live here or to work here on a daily basis. So we're doing pretty good in terms of attracting new business and new residents.
Very good.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Limata. I think we're good. So remember, our next
Motion to
meeting,
adjourn in order, Mr.
yes,
Supervisor.
November 1st, our next meeting, Wednesday.
And I will make that motion.
not here.
Yep. Supported by Dr. Reardon. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay,
Thank you.
okay.